This lesson is about parallel and perpendicular lines, and we're going to start off talking about parallel lines. So this first section, the directions say write an equation in slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b for the line that passes through the given point and is parallel to the graph of each equation. So parallel lines have the same exact slope. So those slopes might both be positive, they might both be negative, they could both be zero slopes, they could both be undefined slopes. But when they're parallel, they have the same slope. So we need to look at number one and first figure out the slope. Well, we have a couple different ways we can do that. We can count, so find any point, up one to the right one, up one to the right one, up one to the right one. Or we can see that the coefficient on x would be a 1. So our slope is 1. That's what we're going to be using. And we're also going to go through this point 5, 1. So to write in slope-intercept form, I'm going to need my b value, which is my y-intercept. So I'm going to work backwards here and say if I have a parallel line, it would have the same slope of 1. And that y-intercept is -1, -2, -3, -4. Okay, for number 2, I see my slope is -1/2, so I'm going to use that same slope. And I can also count that. I can go to any point, and that's down 1 to the right 2, down 1 to the right 2, down 1 to the right 2. So I'm going to do the same thing. Oh, these go by 2s. Tricky, tricky. So down 1, 2. Okay, so here is, whoa, here's my line. And it looks like our y-intercept is at 3. Because if these goes by 2s, that's 2, that's 4. All right, next one. Oh, kind of hard to find our slope here because this is standard form. So we have a couple different options. We can first take this equation and solve it for y to figure out what my slope is, and then we can check it graphically. So we have 4x minus 3y equals -12. So I'll subtract 4x from both sides. Then I have -3y equals -4x minus 12. Divide both sides by -3. And that is +4/3 x plus 4. So let's check that out. So does it look like my graph goes up 4 to the right 3? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. And is my y-intercept at 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. Okay, so there's my equation. To be parallel, I'm going to use the exact same slope that I was given, so 4/3. And then I need to do the same thing here and find where my y-intercept is going to be. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So let's count where that would be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. That was supposed to go through that point, -3, +3, but my line wasn't exactly 100% straight there. All right, so how do we do this if we don't have a graph? Well, we can plug in our x and y and we can solve for b. That's another way that we can do these problems if we don't have a graph. So we know that this is x, we know that this is y, and we know that we're going to use that same slope. Really, what these lines have in common is their slope, and what they have different is their y-intercepts. So if I use this equation and just solve for that b that I was finding on my graph, that's just another way to do it. So y equals mx plus b. Getting b by itself, I would have to add 8 to both sides. So that means b equals 10. So to write my equation, y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to do the same exact thing in number 5. This is x, this is y. Here's the m that I'm using. Y equals mx plus b. 1/3 of 6 is 2. To get the b alone, I will have to subtract 2 from both sides. So that makes b equal to 4 minus 2 is 2. So my answer is y equals mx plus b. So let's go down to number 9, since that one is a standard form equation. So let's see how that's different. From just looking at it, I cannot tell what the slope is. I have to get y by itself. That's how I'm going to know the slope. So subtract x from both sides and divide both sides by 2. The slope is always the number that is right in front of the x. It's the number that's multiplying by x. And I see here I have a negative and then I divide by 2. So technically my slope is -1/2. That's my slope. So I'm going to do the same process. This is x, this is y. I'm going to do it over here. Y equals mx plus b. -1/2 of 4 is -2. I'll add 2 to both sides. So -6 plus 2 is -4. So then my answer is y equals mx plus b. So let's go to some perpendiculars. Oh. Okay, so perpendicular, the symbol for perpendicular is like an upside down T, and perpendicular lines are going to cross at a right angle. So as parallel lines have the same slope, that didn't really look like they weren't going to intersect. Let me draw that a little bit better. There, that's a lot better. Perpendicular lines intersect at a right angle. So they have to make a right angle. We call their slopes opposite, reciprocal. So, for example, if you had a slope that was 1/2, its perpendicular slope would be -2/1. If you had a slope of 3/4, its perpendicular slope would be -4/3. Do you see what I'm doing? If it's positive, I make it negative and flip the fraction over. If it's positive, I make it negative and I flip the fraction over. So what if it's negative? What about -3/2? That becomes +2/3. So if it's negative, I make it positive and I flip it. What if it doesn't look like it's flippable? What about -3? What does that become? Well, we know that -3 is really -3/1. So I'd make it positive and make it 1/3. So let's look down here at number 4. I'm not going to use this exact slope because I want to be perpendicular. I'm going to use the opposite reciprocal. So instead of 1/2, it's -2/1. And I'm going to do the same process that I did before. This is x, this is y. Y equals mx plus b. That's -8. Add to both sides. I get that my b is 10. And there's my answer. I'll do more in the next video.